Well, hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to Mind Your Creative Business. I am Ed Shems / Ed Fred Ned, illustrator and graphic designer. And to my side over there, I don't know if he's the right or left when you see it, is
My name is James Stowe. I'm an illustrator, graphic designer, and arts educator. And below me,
I'm Linda Secondari, and I'm the creative director of Studiolo Secondari, and we're a design firm in New York, and we focus on publishing and communications.
excellent. Thank you all for joining us again. Unfortunately, we're not working so well on LinkedIn, but you can watch us later on LinkedIn if that's where you prefer. But wherever you are watching us live, you can comment. The comments will come through. We will talk about them. We will answer them. We will share them happily. So I hope that you can join us in the comments. And thank you for joining us today. And today we asked Linda to come along because one of her jobs positions is as publisher of the Pricing and Ethical Guidelines Handbook that the Guild puts out. And that's this hefty book right here with all the bookmarks,
Be a beauty.
isn't it? Who did this? Do you remember who did this cover?
Yes, I do. And
Great. Yeah.
Kim Glider designed it, and she's a really well-known, award-winning graphic designer. And Jill Shimabukuro designed the interior
Awesome.
also, and it's a beautiful interior.
It is. It really is. And there's actually a really cool animation of
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
assembly of
yeah,
this cover. I love watching that. It's really
that's
beautiful.
fun.
So this is the 16th edition,
The 6th.
and it's an invaluable resource for all of us. And what is the philosophy, Linda, behind the handbook?
Well, it's really interesting. The handbook started off as just a pamphlet in the mid 70s. And I think the impetus then is the same as what we have now. We want to give tools to, creative business owners in the graphic arts so that they can, make money doing what they love. So we have the sort of three pillars of business as far as the guild is concerned. You have your pricing, you have your ethical guidelines, which includes our contracts and agreements and just ways of working.
Oh, like contracts and agreements, like oh, I saw that earlier. What do we have? Like there's a cease and desist letter right
Hmm.
here on page 424, an artist agent agreement.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
the entire back of the book is just
There's
sample.
contracts,
Yeah,
all
just
sorts
samples.
of contracts. Contracts for illustrators, contracts for designers that have slightly different language. So designers will sometimes do work for hire, which is much less prominent in the illustration world. Uh, it's amazing, and if you are a guild member, helpful hint is that you actually get access to digital versions of all those contracts so that you can easily download them, brand them with your own branding, and use them and change the wording as you need. So that's a great benefit of being a member. But regardless, those contracts are invaluable. So the guild started off in the 70s with this pamphlet.
What was the third pillar?
Well, there's the guidelines, which is sort of like the ways of working, and then there's the contracts, which is the more sort of legal aspects.
Got it.
And you gentlemen are both either current or have been board members on the guild at the guild, so that advocacy, even outside of the handbook, is like a really significant aspect of what the guild does, because we are able to lobby Congress. So right now, AI, for instance, is really impacting our membership, and we're going to Capitol Hill and talking to lawmakers about the impacts on copyright and other aspects of the business, and how we think AI needs to be addressed in copyright and other laws.
That's
Am
right.
I right that the guild is even having a webinar tomorrow about that topic?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. We're
If you
really
go
on the bleeding edge, I've got to say,
if you go
on
to
that.
the guild's website, graphicartsguild.org, and you go to the calendar, which you can find in the resources dropdown, it'll show you that tomorrow, sorry, it's loading. Who owns what AI creates? This webinar will do a deep dive into the 2 key copyright issues raised by using generative AI. And as Linda was suggesting, we are deeply involved with AI, with legislation over AI, with discussing on Capitol Hill. We have our advocacy liaison, Rebecca Blake, over there. We have Delaney West also, who was
Our upcoming, she's taking over that mantle from
Delaney,
Rebecca.
sorry, and I mispronounced her name. I apologize. Who will be taking over the mantle. So we are deeply involved. So tomorrow there's that webinar, Who Owns What AI Creates. I think you have to sign up by midnight tonight. Just FYI, just go to the website, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, while we're directing people to the Guild website, I did want to bring up the higher education page there on the website too, because it does fold into a lot of the information that's provided in the handbook.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it is a resource that you can access whether you're a member or not a member. That is, if you could put the link up there.
I'm going to share the screen. Share my
screen.
screen.
Higher education. If you go to the Guild website, so graphic arts.
Again, it's under resources, and this is the page you'll find.
Yeah.
Recently updated with information that of course, there's talk of the handbook as well as group sales for the handbook. And then we have different resources, Guild webinars that you can rewatch, or there's a monthly webinar. Guild News, Mind Your Creative Business, that's us.
That's
you can
us.
rewatch episodes. And then the pricing book. And then over here, we have all these free Ask a Pro webinars in this series.
The Guild has so much content. And, you guys know this, but I don't know that our audience does. I mean, the reason we took the trouble to develop and update this higher ed page is because actually the handbook is used in professional development courses in colleges and universities all over the country. And we know that it's an amazing resource. So we developed this web page to help more professors find it, discover it, and potentially, consider using it in their courses, because it really is such a great asset. Actually, when I graduated, my first professional purchase was the handbook, because I was lucky enough to get a freelance job, and it was for a not-for-profit. And I had no idea, what I should be charging them. It was Amnesty International, so a really big not-for-profit, but still a not-for-profit. I was designing a note card for the then director to send out as a thank you card, but also they were using it to promote an event. And so one of my professors said, "Oh, you need to get the graphic artist handbook. That'll help you." And not only did I use it to figure out what my pricing was, I also used the contract in the back. I Xeroxed it and, filled in my information. And that was the contract that we used. And so from then on, I was just hooked on the handbook. And that was, very long ago. I'm not even going to mention what edition it was, because I know I don't look a day over 30, but
well, that says a lot though about the longevity. That says a lot about the longevity of the handbook too.
It does.
I mean, when I was in college, I had a similar experience. I don't think they're uncommon. And I discovered the Graphic Artists Guild because of the handbook while I was in college, because it was such a resource and my professors pointed me toward it. I teach graphic design right now. I am using the handbook, this current handbook, as a resource for that.
Excellent.
For that class. So it encapsulates not only like what we do as creative professionals across the board too, not just graphic designers, not just illustrators. It has information for animators and web designers and surface designers, even cartoonists. Not Ed to downplay cartoonists in any way, shape, or form, but
You know,
but it says a lot about why we do the things that we do too, what the best practices are, how to make a business out of what we do.
Exactly.
And considering a lot of creative professionals are freelancers, creating their own businesses, it's an invaluable resource. One I've used my entire career.
Yeah, whether it's a side hustle or your main job, it's an invaluable resource, Ed. Yeah.
no, that's great. That's really great that you're using the handbook for teaching, because that's one of the things that the handbook committee for the guild is working on. It's creating lesson plans for educators such as you. So James, I think we'll be in touch with
looking forward to it.
Some input from you, and maybe we'll share some of it. And if there are any other educators out there who want to offer input, or even if you just want to get on the list, on the bottom of that page, there's a section that says "Coming Soon: Lesson Plan Builders," and you can just kind of fill out your information right there. And as things develop, you'll be the first in the know.
Yeah.
You click right here.
And if you're interested in feeding back, we would love to know how you're using the handbook to teach your classes.
Yeah.
And give us a laundry list of improvements, or anything. We're really open to hearing from you as we begin the process of the 17th edition. So
Totally.
and I know I've gotten the question from people that, given the rate of inflation and the state of the economy over the past 3 years, how accurate is the pricing in the handbook? And my answer is always that the pricing in the handbook gives you a context, and if you feel looking at it that it looks slightly low, you could certainly add 15% to bring it up to you know inflationary standards, or whatever that markup is. But the important thing to note about the handbook is uh, the handbook really has a methodology for value-based pricing as opposed to hourly rate pricing, because at the end of the day, as a creative professional, we add so much more value than what our hourly rate represents in the amount of hours it takes to do a project. Yeah.
How many people out there, whether you're watching live or after the fact where we can't respond, how many people out there do use an hourly rate typically, or and need to get a better understanding of why it might be better to go to a flat rate? Put that in the chat, whether it's live or after the fact. We'll definitely see it. So Linda, can you kind of dive into a good example as to why value-based pricing is more important than hourly-based pricing? There's some good examples that we had talked about earlier.
Yeah. Well, there's another number of reasons. I mean, number one, the more experienced you become, invariably the faster you are, and you shouldn't be penalized for that. The other reality is, the muse can hit you and you can come up with a genius idea in 5 minutes. That doesn't mean it's any less genius than if you had slaved, over your computer screen for 10 hours. So that's an example of why an hourly rate is really not beneficial for us as creative business owners. But we also have to understand that our expertise, we're not even aware fully of our expertise. We do things, our clients come to us because we have a different skill set than they do. And they should be, uh, paying us for that expertise, in addition to just the tasks that we're doing. So
I
often,
agree with that they should be. Yes.
They should be. And often, a client will come, they want a specific thing, but as we are debriefing them to sort of understand the scope of the project, it may turn out that they actually need a few things. And as a creative professional, we need to learn how to add that sort of strategic element of analyzing all of their issues and giving them proposals, perhaps that are even, beyond what they specifically want. And that's where more value based can come in as well. What I like to do for a client is I will absolutely address the very specific challenge that they've given me, but I will also give them, maybe uh, a silver, gold, and platinum version so that they can see how ultimately this one change might be more substantial and useful ultimately if they expand on it.
We talked about that last month, actually. James and we talked about creating different tiers
Mhm.
and creating a tier, because one of the questions that we had ahead of this talk was, to paraphrase, this designer was worried that their the pricing that they were going to come back with to their client was going to be too high.
Mhm.
So what we recommended was that you create a tiered system where this is what they asked for.
Mhm.
This is a lower option, and I remember last time I didn't have three hands to do this. So here's the lower option for okay, but this is realistically where I think you're probably going to be, and
Mhm.
so here's how I would do it so that they don't see this and say, okay,
Mhm.
never mind, scrap the whole thing. And
Mhm.
then the third tier,
Mhm.
it was, but this is really how you should do it, or
Mhm.
it could have been the opportunity to add something else in that you honestly think would
Yeah.
be part of it. And I forget the example that I gave in one of my talks. It was, um, you're trying to see if they want to add a protein to their salad. You're not trying to
Mhm.
get them to
Yeah.
add a lasagna,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Lasagna.
And
Why did I
that's
come up with lasagna? Sorry.
that's a useful strategy in a number of ways because it may be that your client is, very concerned about pricing and they just want to stay rigidly with what they originally requested. uh, you can then loop back to that additional component after the launch and say, now that they've gotten, maybe a comfort level with you and the quality of the work that you've delivered, and they've paid those bills and they're kind of in the rearview mirror now. Hey, do you want to talk about those additional elements? And sometimes they'll be more than happy to do that, or
Yeah,
maybe not now, but in 6 months. But it opens that door, which is what we always want. We want repeat customers.
right.
We want to be able to sort of dive deeper with the clients who've proven to be, good clients for us and we're a good fit for them. You want that kind of take it on the road. I don't know why I'm thinking of Sundance of, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
Yeah,
It's like
that's a
when you
bad
find a
analogy.
partnership that works for you.
Right. James, I have a question for you.
Sure.
When a client, or if a client comes to you and says, how much would it cost to do this illustration? You give them the number and then they say, well, how many hours does that equal? Like, how would you talk them through the fact that you didn't use a number of hours? You came up with
Well,
your price based on value.
I do when I'm bringing up, and this conversation happens over and over again. Right? We talk a lot about. I do project based um, value pricing primarily. I even keep um, a project list for myself, so I know, like off the cuff, what I charge for certain types of projects. So when people come to me, I have a good estimate for what they're looking for, and then I tend to tailor that based on the actual specifics of the particular job. Um, when I talk about my time, I often talk about it in an hourly rate, and usually hourly rates only come up in conversations I have with clients when they're outside the scope of our initial arrangement.
Right.
So I'll be like, well, we could do this. It's outside of our agreement, and I will charge you this hourly rate to get it done. And I estimate these amount of hours to do it. I use that, and sometimes I use that as a disincentive, so that clients don't scope creep on me. Sometimes I use that as just realistic, like this is the value of my time. So you need to understand the value of my time, and I've already factored that in to the work that I have planned for you. And I recommend, if you don't, as a designer or illustrator or freelance professional, whatever you do, if you don't build that into what you do, if you don't value your own work and value your own time, don't expect your client to value your own time.
Yeah.
You need to do that. You need to understand what you are worth and what your work is worth.
Right.
And very often, especially for freelancers, we tend to discount the time we take in making things.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's a huge no-no. You have
tracking hours is like,
you're not only the
it's
boss, you're also the worker. You got to pay the
exactly.
worker.
Yeah. And you do have to capture, all of that incidental time, like, emails, project management, making invoices, creating proposals. For
Yep.
very complex projects, I actually charge to develop a proposal.
Sure. Yeah.
I call it a strategy, session, which is what it is. But I'm basically, if I'm going to invest that amount of time, I need to be paid for it. And at the end of the day, they receive a strategy document, which is valuable. And they could take that strategy document and, try to do it themselves or give it to somebody else. So I'm not going to just give them all that knowledge without getting something in return for it.
It's a t-shirt.
Here's a task timer from an article on the blog on the Guild's website.
Oh, great.
I happened to write the article,
Uh-huh.
but some of this came from other people. I know, sorry.
Mhm.
I only know things I've done. Come on.
Self-promote. Why else?
No,
Right.
Yeah, I'm very bad at keeping track of what I do. Every once in a while, I am, religious about it, and I'm always shocked by how much time I spend doing things.
I have a client who just recently, she's having trouble. I've been with her for a long time, and she needed me to kind of spell out how much each. A lot of what I do is very cyclical, 4 times a year,
Mhm.
for her classes, and needed me to spell out what each piece per semester ends up costing,
Mhm.
time wise. And it's mostly graphic design work that I do for her. And so I had to kind of break it down really for her. And but I wanted to give a range because I know that I get pushback a lot, or I get last minute change of
Mm.
photo,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
and what she doesn't realize is how many times she communicates with me, and how
Mm.
many times how often it takes a day to get a simple answer.
Mhm.
And granted, I'm doing other things during that time, but like my mind turns off of that
Mhm.
project,
Yeah.
and I need time to reboot
Right.
when I finally get the answer. And
Exactly.
so it's really important that you, just like James was saying, you do value your time and recognize how much more time you're putting in than just you open the file, do the work, close the file. There's
Mhm.
more beyond that.
Oh, absolutely. And there are times with some projects, especially if I'm working with contractors, I'm not gonna pretend that I don't look at the hours. I'll estimate, this kind of work is gonna take this amount of time, and, this contractor charges me this amount, at an hourly rate, my own sort of rule of thumb hourly rate for myself, just to give myself a neighborhood when I'm thinking, like, I have no idea what I would charge for this. But then I have to evaluate that price, make sure that I've captured everything that we've just been talking about, and then B, really think about the value that my client's getting for it. I recently did a website redesign. The client moved from one platform to another. The feedback from the client's users was that they could not find this specific form that was very, very important. They couldn't find it. It was very difficult for them to find it. So that was one of our number one required outcomes, was that form was easier to find. And we redesigned the website. The form is easier to find. Everyone's filling out the form now. Everybody's happy. He's getting so much feedback. And we have data to demonstrate that return on investment, that this is happening. He's not answering emails anymore. He's not having to do that about where the form is. So that underpins the value that I promised him when I said, we're going to get that form to be really visible when we redesign this website. And there's value to that beyond just however many hours it took us to redesign the website and move it to another platform. James.
So I got to ask then, was that refinement of the product, the project, was that inside or outside the scope? Like, did you charge extra for the redesign, or did you include that as part of the value of the project?
No, that was one of the criteria of the scope.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, because we did a strategy session.
Yeah,
we did a massive strategy session with. It's a membership organization, so we did surveys of the users. We did user testing. We did A/B testing. So we did all the things to really understand. It's a relatively complex website, so we had to understand how to make this in one user journey, how to make it very pivotal, easy to see, and whatever. So we did the strategy. They approved the strategy. Then we did the redesign and implemented it.
You know, I tell my students the first two steps of any design process is understanding. Step number one, understanding what the client needs, what the client wants, and then defining the scope of what you're doing. Those two are invaluable steps.
Yeah.
And often we feel like we need to go right into the ideation step. Let's just jump right in that. But understanding and defining, if I can use my educational speak, those are super important, and you should also be paid for those steps. Those steps
absolutely
are part of the job that you do. That includes your expertise. That I often tell my clients, my job is to visualize what's in your head.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's when our project succeeds. And when
James,
what you see is on the page.
I'm going to just jump in because I'm actually doing a webinar for the Guild. I think it's in September, it may be in October, but it's on the creative brief. And that is that initial step. And I really think the creative brief is an undervalued tool for collaborating with a client, defining the scope, and can be used throughout the approval process. And that's how you can define when things have gone out of scope. When you say, well, we all agreed on this, green with a frog on it, and now you want it to be, red all type, that's really different. I'm thinking that's kind of out of scope now. So everyone should register for the creative brief report.
There you go.
I love that. It's not on the website yet. Paula usually puts it on in a couple weeks. It'll be put on.
So watch this space. Watch this space.
It would be probably September 15-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I should know it. I'm sorry, I don't have it written in my. Oh, I think it is on the 12:30 on the 14th. That's 14th. What I have on my calendar. Yeah.
That's Thursday. They're usually on Wednesdays.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Well, I could go through my emails right now to find it.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Well, it'll be clearer on the website.
No, you're right. It is on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Sorry. Wrong day. I just need to move that over. Making that note right now on my calendar.
There you go. September 13.
Yeah.
We're really reinforcing the idea that creative professionals are not good at scheduling people.
Oh,
yeah.
We're getting there. I've only been at this for 30 years, dude. So
That's right. We'll get it eventually, right?
Absolutely.
It's due to our hyper focus is the problem.
Exactly.
It is. It is. It's amazing. I know we're ending here, but I was talking with someone about a person who works at her company who is really good at selling, really good at getting you to say yes,
Mm-hmm.
and terrible at everything else. But he
Mm-hmm.
works for a company, so therefore he's really good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
You said yes, okay. I'm
Hands
going
it
to move you
over.
over to Stone.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
us,
Mm-hmm.
many of us, we work
We
for
have to do it
ourselves.
all.
We're really good at the creative stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and we really suck at everything else. And
Mhm.
when we try and pass it over, there's
Mm-hmm.
no one there,
There's no one there,
which is
which is
why
why
I
you
go
need
buy
the
extra.
handbook.
Yeah,
Which is
that's
why
why
you
you
need
need
the
a handbook. And
I also would like to leave everybody with one thing, and it's something that I learned early in my freelance career, and something that has been invaluable to me is you don't necessarily need to do everything by yourself.
Yeah.
If you are not good at something, hire somebody to do that thing.
Amen to that.
Contract people to do it.
Absolutely.
You do not need, use every resource you have. Do not deny yourself resources. So if you know that you are not good at something, find someone who is good at something that whose work you value, and pay them for that work. Just
Exactly.
like you would want your clients to do to you.
Exactly.
That is key. That is key to, like, I am terrible at some things, accounting, terrible at accounting. So I hire accountants.
Exactly.
Because no one wants to see me do the accounting.
No. Same here.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Ed, because that's not something we generally talk about.
and maybe we'll add that to the queue of other longer talks that we have for under creative business.
That's a great talk.
Yeah. But I want to say thank you to everyone for showing up today, and everyone who's going to rewatch this. Hi, Mom. And I especially want to say thank you to Linda for joining James and myself. It was really wonderful to have you on here with us, and I really think you should come back again.
Oh, I'd love to come back. So please invite me again.
We'd be very happy to have you again. So Mind Your Creative Business happens every month, in the middle of the month somewhere, usually on a Wednesday. Today's a Tuesday, I realize, but I'm picking up my kids from camp tomorrow. I haven't seen them in a while.
We needed to adjust.
That's right. So we'll see you all soon. Thank you again, James. Always a pleasure. Linda, thanks again. Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.